Very good evening, friends. Meeting again in the session of Kant's philosophy. We have finished one chapter from Kant, that is the Psora, the chronic diseases, the Psora. The second chapter consecutively, he continued with the Psora. In the first chapter, earlier chapter, we have discussed the Hahnemannian concept of understanding the Psora. And in this specific chapter, he explains his own study towards the Psora. So there is rather big difference between Hahnemannian understanding of the Psora and the Kantian aspect of understanding the Psora. One has to understand each and everything. Kant was brilliant. He considered that if we go back to find it out where exactly the birth of Psora is there, he investigated in such a manner and he considered that in the first man the Psora was there. From where this Psora has evolved? There might be two answers. Either it was there with the God from where it has been transmitted to the man. That is first question. Or second point is that it might be more than skin eruption. So Hahnemannian concept of miasm is completely changed by the Kantian aspect. So in this chapter, he goes ahead to explain his own concept related with the Psora. So it is not just a suppressed skin eruption leading to form new internal diseases, as Hahnemann have explained, as Psora, but this is something more. Open your Kant's philosophy, lecture number 19, chronic diseases, Psora Continued. In the work on chronic diseases, Hahnemann refers to the Psora as the oldest, most universal, and most pernicious chronic miasmatic disease. Yet, it has been misapprehended more than any other. Psora is the oldest miasmatic chronic disease known. The oldest history of oldest nation does not reach its origin. Psora is just as tedious as syphilis and psychosis and is moreover hydra-headed. Unless it is thoroughly cured, it lasts until the last breath of the longest life. Not even the most robust constitution, by its own unaided efforts, is able to annihilate and extinguish the Psora. See, in the introductory part of this specific chapter, he starts with the concept of Psora. The Psora is there right from the beginning. It's there since long time. The word which he has explained is very clear or used is very clear that it has been misapprehended. It was not clearly understood by many people what Hahnemann actually wants to explain. And it was misapprehended. This is what Kant said. And this is very important thing one must understand. So Kant says that it is just not a suppressed itch. It is more than suppressed itch. One more word which he has used for Psora, that it is hydra-headed. Why he has said hydra-headed? Because whatever the disease you label, the Psora is always there in the background. And because of this Psora, rest all the chronic diseases starts or originates. As the hydra is the animal where he develops them anywhere the mouth to engulf the food, it's like that the Psora is the miasm. Everywhere it opens its mouth to find it out the reason behind the chronic diseases. It's a big issue. And that's why Kant labeled it as a hydra-headed. It has n number of manifestations. So in this first introductory paragraph, he explains that Psora miasm is the oldest miasm on this earth. The three chronic miasms, Psora, syphilis, psychosis, are all contagious. This is again one more clear study about the Kant. What he says, Psora is contagious, the psychosis and syphilis are all contagious. In each instance, there is something prior to the manifestations which we call disease. We speak of the signs and symptoms of disease. We speak of outcroppings of the symptoms when we speak of syphilis, but remember that it is state prior to the syphilis or syphilis would not exist. It could not come upon man except for a condition suitable to its development. In like manner, Psora could not exist for a condition in mankind suitable for its development. He has given very good example of it. He has explained that syphilis disease develops because of Treponema pallidum. This is what we know. But this Treponema pallidum is the bacilli which gets transmitted from the sexual contact. Everyone knows that it is a venereal disease. Generally, those who suffer from syphilis contracts this disease to the another person. You know that it can happen when a person goes to the prostitute, where if the disease is present, the person who goes over there catches that. Knowing that he might suffer from such type of hazardous disease, he goes over there. He's frivolous. He never takes care of it that he might get or he might suffer from it. Still, he goes over there. Means his mind is syphilitic. He never takes care of it, is the syphilitic mind. He was originally syphilitic and that's why he goes over there and catches the syphilis. Otherwise, it would not. So, there is a state prior to the syphilis in the human being and because of which that person grabs the syphilis. In the similar manner, Kant says that there is something prior to the Psora, the Psoric state in the human being, because of which he catches the each mite and he suffers from scabies. So there is something prior to the scabies or itch, and because of which the person is able to get such a communicable disease, contagious disease, the itch. So a state prior to it is the psoric miasm. What is that psoric miasm? That he wants to explain in this specific chapter. So, in this chapter, you are going to learn the concept as explained by him. Let us go ahead what he says further. Sora being the first and other two coming later, it is proper for us to inquire into the state of human race that would be suitable for the development of Sora. There must have been the state of human race suitable to the development of Sora. It could not have come upon perfectly healthy race, and it would not exist in a perfectly healthy race. There must have been some sickness prior to this state, which if we recognize as the chronic miasm Sora, some state of disorder, some state that it would be perfectly rational and proper for man to undertake to solve as to its cause, as to its history, and as to its every nature. Some will say, but if we undertake to do this, we will have to accept the word of God as historical, as relating to the beginning, because there is no other history going so far back. There is no harm in reasoning from that, and I hope you will so accept it, not only as the history, but as divine revelation. Not that I wish to quote from or refer to it, because I never do so in my teaching. If we look upon syphilis, we'll see that man's own act leads him to the place where he comes in contact with syphilis, and it is the result of action. So see, he's explaining very clearly the concept. He's explaining the same thing. Human being at start was in a perfectly healthy state. The original nature of human being is to help others, to serve others, to think of others, and then to think of his own. That was original human nature. But what has happened? Till everything was going in a right direction, everything was healthy, there was no disease in human life, and human was absolutely healthy and happy. When this human being started thinking in a selfish manner, to which in an earlier chapter he has used one word called as spiritual sickness. What is spiritual sickness? Spiritual sickness means he left his original nature and he becomes selfish because of his ego, because of his will, because of his intellect, because of his memory. And he started considering himself something more than anything, someone more than anything. And that's why the things have changed. The original human nature, the healthy nature, had changed. And when he started thinking about himself only, then the problem has aroused. Then the dis-ease has happened. Because when you start thinking about your own self, then automatically you miss the ease. And this is the origin of disease. And Kant says that if you don't consider this, the thing prior to the act, the prior to the disease, you will lead only towards the first man. And man, the creator of man is God. If you consider it is the God who is responsible to produce Psora in the human being, then you might be wrong. Or that is the only thought with which you can end. But God will not going to create a Psora or skin eruption. It is his, because of his own act, he grabs that each mite in his life. So from where it has entered and why it has entered? It has entered because the Sora was more than that. And that to that concept, he is leading you and he is entering into such a thought. He explains over there that human nature has changed. His will, the main theme of his conscience, has disturbed. Instead of thinking of others, he started thinking of him. The will had changed. And because of his will, the ego boosted up, and to which Kent label, this is Sora. This is Sora, because of which he went into the state of disease. He went into the state of increased susceptibility. He went into the state of disease susceptibility, and he grabbed the infection of each to him. The origin was there in the will. That will to which we label by the name of Ichha Shakti, or we call it because of which we used to think. And this will, which was deceased, entered into human being, a different entity. And because of which human have suffered from such a grave disorder of a human race, that is the soul. So Kent is taking the Sora towards the psychological aspect of understanding understanding the Sora. He is going toward the human mind and considering it is something prior to it, which is called to be a Psora, it is not just skin eruption. He takes the help of syphilis in the similar manner he explains the Psora. In next para, what he says, syphilis is the disease which corresponds to the effects of impure coition. Of going where syphilis is, of coming in contact with those who have it, it is an action. It is not so with Psora. Man does not seek it. He does not go where it is. He does not associate with those necessarily that have it. He may be exposed, but syphilis is the result of his own action, which is an impure formication or adulteration, which he knows better than to seek, and knows enough from his intelligence to avoid. Syphilis, then, is the result of action, although after once ultimated, it may be perpetuated by accident. There is always a state and condition of man that precedes his action, and if syphilis corresponds to man's action, and there is state prior to it, a disease condition that precedes, that state must correspond to that which precedes the action, which is thinking and willing. Underline the last two words, thinking and willing. Everyone was knowing that such a grave disorder, syphilis, a sexually transmitted disease, is graft because of impure coition. Means if the person comes in contact with a person who is having already a syphilitic disorder, he knows that if he goes or have contact with that, he will grab that disease. Knowing all those things, he goes over there. Why do he goes? Because his will is responsible for that. His will and thinking never stops him to go over there. He cannot avoid because his mind is not able to avoid it. His mind is not under his control. That is the syphilitic mind. One extreme is syphilitic mind. Syphilitic mind is mind where the extreme reactions you can find. I don't care is the aspect of syphilitic mind. And they go ahead. And because of which, knowing that they can grab that such a disorder, they grabs it. And because of their crooked mind, because of their syphilitic mind. So he says over there the same thing, that syphilis disease never happens just because of treponema pallidum. It is because of the nature of that human being who is already syphilitic in his mind or mental state, and because of which he catches that disorder. So, see, in a nice manner, he is explaining and going towards the understanding of Psora. And last two words which he has used are his keywords, thinking and willing. Will is the most innermost thing of the human mind. And that will, if diseased, enters into the disorder or into the chronic miasm. So Kant's concept of understanding the Psora is nothing but understanding the Psora in the mental state of the human being. And he wants to impose on your mind, it is not just skin eruption, it is a will of the human being leading towards the ego of the human being is a Psora. So in this chapter, we're going to learn that concept in detail with different examples. Today we'll stop over here and we'll continue with this next time. We'll directly meet on Monday with this session. So thank you being there. We'll meet on Monday. Good evening.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.